Welcome to New Life Live, the premier place to receive free advice from Christian psychologists and counselors for the mental, emotional, relational, and spiritual challenges you face. Since 1988, we've offered compassionate responses that combine God's truth with proven psychological principles to guide you toward healing. Our phone lines are open. Call us now at 1-800-229-3000.
Welcome to New Life Live. It's Chris Williams, licensed marriage and family therapist. I also have licensed professional counselor Becky Brown. How are you doing today, Becky?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
Good to see you. And I also have fellow licensed marriage and family therapist Marc Cameron. Marc, how's it going?
I'm doing well.
All right. Marc, I'm curious. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind? Well, so this month, August, is back to school. So I want to talk to parents today. And now a couple of years ago, my wife and I, we purchased the house, and, the house needed some updating, and we also wanted to put our own identity stamp on it. And so we planned to remodel when we purchased it. And about 6 months into moving in, we decided we're going to replace the floors and we're going to replace the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And we decided to do that at the same time. And so every piece of furniture in the house was in the backyard. Okay, and we lost track of everything. It was so chaotic. But now a child's brain, while it's constantly growing and being shaped, twice in childhood, a child's brain goes through this remodeling process where the brain undergoes these really large data dumps where they start to gets rid of information to make space for new information. It's called neuropruning. And so the first time this happens is between 2 and 3 years old. And it has to do with identity, right? Because up until then, the parent is providing everything for a child. They're feeding, they're changing, they're soothing, they're comforting. But as a child grows, they become a toddler, they learn to feed themselves, they learn to walk, and they become mobile. And so they start to discover that their identity is separate from mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And neuropruning happens at this point, and that's when you'll hear a lot of mine and no, right? And we refer to it as the terrible twos or maybe the terrible threes here. But a second data dump happens again during childhood, and that happens in adolescence. And again, it has to do with identity. And this time, the identity is the teen learning that they are separate now from their family. And they're going to be going out into the world and trying to figure out who they are in the world. And at that time, they want to spend less time with mom and dad and more time with peers, and peers' voices actually become more influential. Now, this can feel like a rejection to many parents at that time, where you can feel like you're losing your influence. But this is a normal part of adolescence. And if you can recognize it and accept it as that, you can actually have some really good conversations with your kids. And if you learn to listen to them well, you can help them as they discover their identity. Now, I have teens, and I recognize this, that often as a parent, we want to turn conversations into teaching moments or correcting opportunities. But if we learn to listen well, that's an opportunity to model for our kids understanding empathy and even accepting differentiation, them being different from you. And I like the comfort circle method of listening that we often refer to on the show from Milan and Kay Yerkovich's book, How We Love. And the comfort circle, what it is, it's really a structured role of how to learn to stay in a listener role by being curious. So how do we do the comfort circle? It's not just about asking your kids a bunch of questions, because a lot of times we'll say to kids, how was your day? And what do they say? It was fine. And you just kind of shuts down, right? So learning to make a statement, you might say to your kids, tell me about your day, and model for them the kind of details you're looking for. And then as they give you information, make observations, right? You might say, sounds like you really like that class. And then you ask a question, what is it that your teacher does to make it interesting? Repeat back what they say, offer empathy, offer validation. That makes sense. I can see why you feel that way. Watch and pay attention to other parents who have good connections with their kids. And if you practice these skills, your kids will open up. The indicator of a good interaction with your kids is that they're actually doing most of the talking, because kids know when you're trying to teach them a lesson and when you're really interested in who they are.
Well, it just reminds me, being better connectors and better communicators create more secure children. Mm-hmm. Marc, thank you.
I was thinking, be curious, not furious.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.
5 years ago, I had been in porn addiction, and I'd had a sexual relationship out of marriage.
Every day, men struggle with sexual integrity, impure thoughts, strip clubs, affairs, pornography. Find help today at New Life's Every Man's Battle Intensive.
It was the first time I'd ever divulged the sin that I had.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
I found a confidential comfort that was able to put a flame to a start of a healing process.
Now the intensive is coming to Washington, D.C., September 20th through the 22nd. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
Thank you, New Life. They're the redeemed, man. Thank you.
1-800-NEWLIFE and the discount code NLL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you are with us today. And we are also really, really glad that Paul has called in today. He's listening in Tempe, Arizona on KNLB. Paul, glad that you're with us today. What's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having my call. So my wife had a opiate addiction for 10 years, and she had kept it hidden, and that was 5 years ago she stopped. But a lot of the bad habits around denial and lying lingered pretty heavily for the few years after that. And now that it's about 5 years, still struggle a little bit with telling the truth. Well, not a little. It's on very small issues, just little benign things I think people will call like white lies. And it really puts a strain on the marriage. And I was wondering what a biblical perspective on the matter might be.
Yeah, that really good question. So, Mark, what do you think is going on
So
here?
what are some of the white lies? What are the insignificant lies that she tells Paul, and how's that challenging for your marriage?
It could be, did you do this? And she'll say, yes, I did. And then maybe I'll find out she didn't. And then she'll have an excuse and kind of not own it. And things that I wouldn't think you would need to lie about. Just very, very minor things. Stuff I would normally deal with like the kids, and not. But, I tend to think where, small lies exist. Maybe there's larger ones, but I really don't suspect that anymore. So I think it's more of just a coping mechanism to not deal with things sometimes.
Yeah, and you could be right. Did you guys do any work as a couple after your wife got clean from her opiate addiction?
Not as much as not much. She was very much like, let's move on. This is over with. I don't want to look back.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah, so I think that's still an important part of recovery that you guys need to do, because if you don't do that recovery focus work on how that's impacted you as a couple, how that's impacted you as a family, it's really just left it as, well, this was her problem, and now she's over it, and really you're probably not over it. I mean, this is such a big thing that affects people, it affects a family, it affects a marriage. And so I would encourage you guys to get into some couples counseling to start to talk about it, because what you're seeing here is something that is similar in addiction, which is lying. But that lying is probably something that was learned way before she got into an addiction. And as you're saying, she's very dismissive. She just wants to move on and say, well, now that's in the past. It's not affecting me anymore. Let's just keep going. But it is affecting her, and it's affecting you, and it's affecting your marriage. So learning to see, well, where did that come from? Oftentimes people who lie, it's a survival skill learned from childhood, because it wasn't safe for them to tell the truth. Because if they told the truth, things got a lot worse from them. There wasn't a lot of grace, there wasn't a lot of forgiveness, and maybe there wasn't a lot of teaching.
Yes.
In there. So I encourage you to get into therapy with a couple, couples therapy with a professional counselor to start to explore some of these things so that you can start to bring these things out to the surface. The only way to address lies is to bring them out into the light and to talk about it and to see where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. You know what I was thinking is I was going to ask the same question, Paul. I was going to ask what your healing process was. You know, the other thing that's driving the lies is the shame at the core of her experience. When we get into recovery, both the person who has the addiction and the person who is on the receiving end, and that would be you, when we get into recovery, we begin to learn how to stay current with how we are feeling and what we are thinking and how we are behaving. And it's not from a punitive standpoint, it's literally creating the awareness, because addiction keeps us separated from what our reality is. That's the whole point of, you know, we use stuff and things and behaviors to distract us from our reality. And so getting into reality takes some skill, takes some strength. And I mean, that would be the key thing. Now, you know, Chris, you're expert at addiction recovery. I mean, I would love for you to speak to Paul about that.
Yeah, Paul, to echo what Becky was saying, is that your wife is buried in her own shame. And to echo what Marc was saying, is that my guess is that in her childhood, an intolerable or undesirable truth came with pain. So
her mother was an alcoholic, and it was very hard.
Okay.
She couldn't. Yeah.
That's right there. So that shame then becomes generational as well. She came by this very, very honestly. And it's also, but know this, part of the addiction is exactly what you said. I would be highly concerned with this thing called denial. And just like Becky said, denial is a way for us to avoid reality. And here's one of my favorite definitions of addiction. It is a radical commitment to escape reality. But if we're not in reality, we can't be in relationship. We can't be in creativity. We can't be in solving problems. We can't be in life. So, but if addiction is radical commitment to escape reality, then part of, and a huge part of recovery, is a radical commitment to reality. It's one of the amazing things that the 12 steps helps us do. I always say this, 12 steps doesn't keep you sober. Not using or not acting out, that's what keeps you sober. But the 12 steps help you live sober. And so that's what seems to be missing in this process.
And it sounds like, Paul, that you don't know how to address it other than catching her in the lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just getting angry.
Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then your anger buries her further into hiding and shame. And that, again, what Marc was saying, I think you guys getting in front of a couples therapist and one who knows addiction fairly well could really, really help you in this process.
Yeah, and I've heard you say this.
Well, maybe after this call, you can give me your number or how I can.
Yes, we will. We sure will.
We'll connect you to somebody for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard you say this before, Chris, that sobriety is not the goal. Sobriety is just moving the stuff out of the way so that we can deal with the problem. And, you know, Paul, your wife, she's had a mother who dealt with life with addiction. And instead of learning to feel, she used addiction to deal. And so she's learned to deal with life in this way. And so there's going to have to be this whole excavating, going back and looking at what has happened to be able to relearn the emotionally healthy way to address these deep feelings.
And it is challenging to get a person who is really kind of suffering and buried underneath shame to engage in the process. Because just know this, it's actually not the behavior, it's not even the lying that they're terrified of. It's the exposure of the self.
Yes.
It's the exposure of the shame, or the confirmation of the shame that they're most afraid of. So one way to do this, Paul, is to say, hey, wife, I am really struggling, and I know the way that I react to you comes across as critical and controlling, and that's got to hurt. And I don't want to do this anymore. I can't figure my way out. So I would love for us to just kind of get some help so I can be a better husband to you.
Okay.
I would
Great.
I would also love
Well,
for
thank
both
you.
of them to go to our Life Recovery Conference. That would be a great way to spend the day.
Absolutely. So, yes, beat me to the punch. So, but yes, Becky, the Courage to Change Conference, October 5th. What will he and his wife experience there?
Well, you're going to learn, Paul, about some basic understanding of recovery, but also all the different ways that we heal through understanding the courage that it takes to change. Things like learning about codependency and learning about, the history of the 12 steps. Well, how many people it helped? And I think a lot of times when we're sober, not using, we think that we're actually in recovery. And that's just the beginning, like you just said, Mark. But there's a lot of work ahead. But Paul, there's hope. There's a lot of hope for your marriage.
And Paul, I just want to say October, and I know it's a little bit ways away, but October could be a very transformative month for your marriage and your lives. Because again, from the comfort of your own home, you can attend the Courage to Change conference and learn a lot more about what's going on underneath the surface. On October starting on October 25th in Dallas is our Intimacy in Marriage workshop. And that Intimacy in Marriage intensive, what it will help you as a couple do is create the safety, create a little bit more trust underneath the surface, a little bit more security, so you can start to engage in tougher conversations or scarier conversations. It becomes less scary. And ultimately, what oftentimes our addictions are doing is they are a form of attachment that's misaligned with a substance or misaligned with a behavior. And so much of our recovery is becoming healthier relational people, because the very intolerable conditions that we're dealing with inside, our angers and our resentments, our hurts, our pains, and all of that, they're looking for a relational home to land and be comforted and soothed and to be resolved. But because relationships can be scary and out of control and even painful, we resort to a substance or behavior. Now, imagine if we had healthy relationships or healthier relationships where we can resolve some of our angers and resentments, where we can be comforted in our pains, where we can find security in our insecurities. Then the drink or the drug or the acting out just makes less sense.
Well, you don't need it anymore.
You don't need
because
it.
you're already finding the release. And the thing that I love about about intimacy in marriage for you, Paul, for you and your wife, as Chris was alluding to before, it's the shame underneath that stops her from addressing this. And so with intimacy in marriage, we're helping each member of the couple look at themselves, look at what they're bringing into the marriage. Because if you can take this honest review of yourself and be able to admit to what your flaws are too, I think there's less of that focus on it's her, she's the one who's had the problem. And it becomes easier to admit when you get around others who are admitting too. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
Yeah, and it's modeled for you and therefore becomes less scary. So, Paul, thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for seeking a better marriage in a difficult situation. And we're going to cheer you on. I'm going to send you two resources. I'm going to send you the Life Recovery Bible and How We Love. And I think both of those will help guide you along. Again, I can't encourage you enough to engage and sign up today for the Courage to Change online conference, October 5th, as well as jump into Intimacy in Marriage intensive in Dallas on October 25th. Again, these two things can be unbelievably transformative.
And we'll get him connected with a counselor too.
Absolutely.
He was asking
That's
for
right.
that. Yeah.
You know, it really is so much fun, like truly fun, to be a part of a ministry like New Life that is constantly reaching out and providing really tangible solutions to some of life's most difficult and painful dilemmas. And as we hear over and over and over again, sometimes the radio in what we do here is the thing that helps people along and navigate life's most difficult situations. We can't do this if you aren't a part of it, and if your financial contributions aren't a part of it. In fact, we got this from a thankful listener in Philadelphia. It says, "For the first time, I heard this show and was hooked. I plan my day around being able to listen to it daily. The counseling techniques of all who work in this ministry are amazing. I have recommended New Life to more than I can count and will continue to do so. Thank you to all who make this program the best ever. It is you who financially contribute that help make, or the essential help that make this possible." So I want to continue to implore you, encourage you, whatever we need to do to continue to give. You can go to newlife.com and it'll navigate on a donate icon there, and you can sign up, donate, be a financial contributor, and find all the different ways that is possible. Thank you for listening. We're going to come back right after this and take more of your calls.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hit with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I would up getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found life recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We're glad that you're with us. It's myself, Chris Williams, Marc Cameron, Becky Brown, and it is also Jay in Enos, Texas on KWRD. Jay, what's going on today?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Well, I just had a question. I listen to you all every single day, and y'all give such good advice. And I had an issue in my marriage. We've been married for like almost 8 years, and I call it the lazy addiction.
A lazy addiction.
Yes, and it caused such a big issue in the household, and it's just, and I don't know, maybe, and I'm thinking like, is it me? Am I over exaggerating, or is it silly? But if we don't see it and try to work it out, but it's not working out, and I don't know what else to do. And I was like, well, maybe I just need to get an outside person.
Well, Jay, what does his laziness look like? Like, give me a day in the life of.
Like, say for instance, like sometimes, like at one point, he wasn't working for like 6 months.
Okay.
Like no work.
And what was he doing? Like, what was he doing during those 6 months?
Nothing. Like sleep. Nothing. Like literally nothing. Not looking for a job.
But would he lay in bed? Would he be on the couch? Would he be watching TV? What did it look like?
And that was his daily routine. From the bed to the living room, from playing the game to back to the bed to playing the game, and that was it.
To playing a game
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask.
So what about now, Jay? What does his laziness look like?
Well, right now, he has got a job, but it done put us such in a turmoil in our finances that I have to work all the time, and he doesn't do anything extra to try to even help to try to catch up. So, I mean, he's been working now for like 2 months, but
and what does he do?
He worked at a warehouse at
Okay. Yeah.
Well, so Jay, when you guys have these conversations about, husband, you need to do more, what does that look like?
He is the minimum. That's all I get is the minimum. And his thing is, I'm trying.
Do you think he's depressed, Jay? I mean, like what you're talking, I don't know why he lost his first job, but I'm thinking that he may be suffering with depression, and that's not an excuse, but it could be a really powerful explanation for his minimal response to when you say, you got to step up, you got to help. Is that a possibility?
I was thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I ask another question, like digging a little bit deeper? You said that he's like playing games. Is that like on his phone, on his, like, what was that again? What games is he playing?
And that's another thing. Social media he stays on social media. He has a video game, and between both of them, it's like that's where his attention is mostly into.
Okay. So let me go a level deeper on there. Have you ever checked out what he's looking at?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'm not saying that this is the case, but I am also saying that this may be the case. I'm wondering if pornography is involved here.
Right.
Right? I'm gonna let that. Yeah, I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute, only because it has this effect. Here's what it does. It provides a dopamine boost that raises mood. So with a person that's depressed, it can really help them out, at least how they feel. But also, I said earlier in the show that it's also an escape from reality. But the more you go down that road, the more disconnected you become with life.
Well, and even the use of social media and being online, we have studies to show that it's creating isolation in all levels of society today. And so, Jay, the challenge that you have is, what kind of setup do you guys have as far as contributing to the division of labor in your home and in your marriage, and getting him some help? It's not a matter of just saying, husband, you need to help more. Well, he's going to be like, I'm doing whatever I can, but he's really not aware of it because he's disconnected with social media or he's suffering with depression. So my recommendation is you guys have to have a therapist. I know that sounds like the answer to everything, but listen, you got to have outside help. And especially if you think that depression may be part of what he's dealing with, you got to have a plan to move forward so that you don't keep having this same struggle over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that, Jay, you probably need to assign different roles for you inside the house, and you may have to do less because you're making up where the lack of effort is on his part, and so if you're doing it all, he doesn't have to come and close that gap. Whereas if you can agree to certain roles and then you stop there, he's going to have to make up the gap, or at least it becomes very, very obvious who's putting in the effort and who's not putting in the effort.
Absolutely. So, Jay, we want to get you in front of a therapist. We also want to give you a copy of Boundaries, because I think that there is some strength that you need to be honest with him, and that's going to help you get there and do that. Jay, thank you so much for calling in today. I also want to just encourage you, do a little investigation, because there might be more going on with his media use. We're going to be back right after this.
I'm addicted to oxycodone. I've been on oxycodone almost 3 years.
Addiction affects millions of people every year.
I've been on it for a long time, and I need to get off.
New Life can connect you with some of the finest Christian inpatient treatment programs in the country that work with people from all backgrounds and beliefs.
First it was for back pain, and I was on it for a long time. And then I currently just had shoulder surgery.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction to illegal or prescription drugs, alcohol, or dealing with an eating disorder, it's time to seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers all around the country.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or visit us online at newlife.com. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then becoming a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
You know, I'm so thankful because you know why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And you know one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch listening to all this great information and not paying, so my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you are with us. We're going to get to Betty here really shortly, but I want to mention, I mentioned before, I don't know if Jay's husband is struggling with pornography or not. There might be some signs and symptoms there, but the reason I mentioned it is because when a person gets sucked into a porn addiction, one of the things that is a natural consequence over time is depression, because there's actually a neurological evidence of that. It's called a dopamine deficiency. And I get really technical talking about hedonic baselines and all of that sort of thing. But what it actually shows up is the inability to experience gratitude and joy and excitement apart from the addiction. And it just has this subtle way that porn can hide in so many different ways, but it is going to show up with depression. It's going to show up with anxiety. It's going to show up with a continuing isolation, disconnection to life that also includes an increase in irritability and anger. If you find yourself in this situation, or you are married to a person and you know that this is your pathway to destruction, don't stay on the path any longer. You can get to our Every Man's Battle Intensive. This is for anyone, any man who desires to walk with sexual integrity. I mean, we've been doing this for over 20 years. We know how to do it. And we're able to do it in a way that you're not just able to have the tools to break away from the addiction, you're also, or the behaviors, you're able to find the tools to break away from the shame, to break away from the depression, to break away from the anxiety. So our Every Man's Battle Intensive is coming up September 20th in Washington, D.C. Again, you can go online to newlife.com/events, and you can find our Every Man's Battle workshop and register online, or you can call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. So don't delay if you find yourself in this situation. So like I mentioned, we're going to go to Betty. She's listening in Brookline, Massachusetts. Betty, we are so glad that you are joining us today. Can you tell us what's happening with you?
Yes. Hi, and thank you guys for taking my call. I had talked to you all many years ago, especially Stephen. What was his name? Stephen Otterburn.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I talked a long time ago. But the question is that I told the lady, I said to the lady that I just talked to, I'm married, but I'm not with my husband. We've been separated for a long time. We got married in 2008. So we just been separated off and on because of verbal abuse. And one time it was like a threat, but this was years ago.
Uh-huh.
So
verbal abuse from him?
Yes.
Okay.
So I moved out of the house. So ever since then, I've had my own apartment, which I've always had, had my own little job. So now I'm at a place where I'm having problems with both of my hips because I was doing cleaning work all my life. I had problems with the right hip, and then I'm having problems with the left hip where I can't work. I can't do any work. So it sort of came up to me that my husband is either going through Alzheimer's or dementia. I don't know which one it is, but I know something is going on with him.
Uh-huh.
So I said to my pastor, maybe I need to move back in the house with my husband to take care of him because I can no longer afford to live where I'm living and pay my bills because I don't have money to pay my bills.
No,
so this came up years ago with Steve.
Uh-huh.
Steve gave me Ephesians 6, God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's scripture. So the other night I was down on my knees and I was like, Lord, I was crying. I said, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. So now the left hip has started acting up. So when we was on last Sunday, the pastor spoke this word again, and that's the scripture that Steve Otterburn had given me many years ago at a conference here in Boston. So the scripture came up again yesterday. So I'm wondering if God is telling me that I can do this. Because I don't know. I don't want to move if this is not God talking to me. This is scripture that Stephen gave me.
And when you say I can do this, would this look like moving back in with your husband and taking care of him?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, Betty, there's a lot to what you're experiencing. I think that when you think about that passage, I can do exceedingly abundantly. I'm not sure that he's talking just about that you need to stay where you are and all of that. There's wisdom in taking into consideration that your husband may be dealing with something that's going to be requiring a lot of you. But at the basis of all of this, though, is the unresolved issue with your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're actually probably working harder because you have to sustain a separate life than your husband. And now we've got this other thing that's going on. And what I would suggest is instead of just doing this on your own, I want you to get into some great counsel between the two of you. Your husband will need an assessment to see if it is dementia, Alzheimer's, or anything else, but also to have a resolution to your marriage, whether you're staying or you're going or what the future looks like. And I think sometimes when we're faced with a wall, and right now that's what it must feel like to you, Betty, with this hip pain and being overwhelmed. And man, you've been a strong woman for so long, but let's get some answers and let's get some clarity about what this next step looks like. And I don't believe, and I know a lot of times people will say, well, we just take this one scripture. I don't believe that that's what God's intention is. I think that when you read that passage, that God can do exceedingly abundantly. First of all, he's done that in the fact that you've been able to continue to work this long, but it hasn't resolved the issue of the marriage. And we've got to get that clear. And that would be my next step for you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think it... Go ahead, Betty.
Excuse me. He wants me to come back in the house, but yesterday, a couple of days ago, I was trying to explain to him, and I was talking to him about, I was like, honey, you go out every day to eat, And I said, let me just talk this to you. I said, you go out every day to eat, right? And so he said, yes. And so I said, every day you spend $15 or $20 to go out to eat. So if I'm in the house, I'm cooking breakfast. You can sit down and have breakfast, and you can have tea all day long. You could give me that $15, what you giving to the restaurant. So then I turned around and asked him, did he understand what I was saying, what I was talking about? And he said, no.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, let's go back and do this over again.
So hold on, Betty. I'm gonna jump in because I know how this is gonna go. He's struggling with some form of dementia, right? Or something, a cognitive decline for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that this is crystal clear. Any issue that he struggled with, any pattern that he struggled with, while he had a clear mind, is going to only increase in his cognitive decline.
Well, and that's really where I was going to go with that, Chris. I mean, Betty, it's hard for us to say with exact certainty what God is saying or what God isn't saying, but what God gives us is he gives us wisdom and he gives us discernment. And if we don't quite have those things, then we should try and do our best to access those things. And now, if you hadn't told me he had Alzheimer's or dementia, I would have asked you, what is he doing to win you back and what is he doing to address his anger? But now he does have Alzheimer's or maybe Alzheimer's or dementia. Given what you said about the verbal abuse and that one time there was a threat, with this diagnosis, does it now make it more dangerous or less dangerous or maybe the same dangerous to move back in? And so just jumping to move back in just because he needs help doesn't mean that it's going to be less dangerous for you. In fact, I think you guys need more help because of this. If this is what's happening, you need
more outside
help. Exactly, a greater level of support, and you are going to need a medical team behind you to help you understand what is happening. And people who have dementia, people who have Alzheimer's, they can be combative at times because they're scared, they're fearful, they don't know what's going on. And so you need to be able to protect yourself if you are going to need to be able to help him.
And you know what I was going to say too, though, Betty, is even if he didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's, the issue of your marriage has to get resolved. Living perpetual separation without an understanding is also difficult for you, but clarity is the way to go forward.
And Betty, we also have to understand God's creativity is much better than ours and much bigger than ours. And more than we can ask or imagine means more than what we can ask or imagine.
There you go.
He has solutions beyond our imagination. So moving back in, I don't think is the solution here. But we're going to send you we're going to send you a copy of Boundaries that kind of helps understand how to relate to safe, but better yet, unsafe people.
The clarification is get help, Betty,
yes,
to make these decisions.
Absolutely. We'll be back right after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are.
Hi, this is Steve Arterburn, and for over 34 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
Your ministry has saved my life.
If you struggle with emotional hurt, family, or marriage problems, the pit of depression, or the pain of addictions, we can help.
I'm down 100 pounds now from what I was.
Our treatment programs provide clinically appropriate solutions from licensed professionals, all in a biblical framework.
I have had problems with alcohol. I think God has ordained this place to be His.
You don't have to be a prisoner of your pain. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
She tells me that I'm a new man, and I feel like a new man.
It worked for me, and it can work for them too.
This time it is different.
If you're ready to take the first step towards genuine spiritual and emotional healing, call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God can open the door to a better tomorrow. Call 1-800-639-5433.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you guys are listening and with us today. And we're going to go right back to the phones. We're going to get to one more call in our program today. We're going to go to Jacqueline in Levittown, Pennsylvania, who listens on our app. And just as a quick reminder to everyone out there, New Life has an app. And it is like a one-stop shop for all things New Life. So download that today, the New Life app. And Jacqueline, thank you for joining us today. What's going on and how can we help you?
Yes, sir. Now that I'm sober and abstinent, my question for you is I'm looking for input on how to fit myself to be of maximum service to God in the body of Christ. Thank you.
That's a big question, Jacqueline. So, but don't go away too quickly. Can I ask you what you said? Sober. What were you What were you struggling with, and for how long were you struggling with it?
Alcohol. I've been sober for just over 10 years now.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great.
And why now is this question coming up for you?
Well, I was going over this topic with my therapist. I have a Christian counselor that I see regularly.
Awesome.
And we were discussing this topic on Saturday, and I thought it can't hurt to get more input from more brothers and sisters in Christ who are trained in mental health.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm going to start, before I turn over to my incredible co-host, and say this. One of the things that God has obviously created us for purpose. He's created us for impact. But one of the things I just want to acknowledge, a lot of times that we're looking for God to be, for us to be useful to God. Mm-hmm. And where I want to start, and I may be preaching to the choir, you may already know this, but what we forget that is hiding in plain sight is God's primary will for us is not that we do something. It's that we be a certain kind of person. That we show up in the world in a particular kind of way. And sometimes peculiar kind of way. Like with a lot of love. So is there an anxiety around this or an kind of a worry around this? I need to figure out this because.
I think it's a good question. As the end times continue on, it's something that's been on my heart, like preparing to face the Antichrist. Obviously, we don't know exactly what to do or say before we face difficult situations such as that. But it is something that is in my heart, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Well, I like what you're saying here, Chris, because I think we have multiple different purposes. So for myself, I have a purpose as a husband. I have a purpose as a father. I have a purpose as a therapist. I have a purpose as a friend and my influence in other people's lives. And then, I have a greater purpose in God's kingdom. So there's a lot of purposes that I have to fulfill. And some of them are, stepping out in faith and doing things. And some of them are becoming
yes, that's good.
The person who I'm intended to be. And so we go through all of these trials in life, and it's really just to prepare us for heaven. And learning to do our own growth, learning to look at how we're being shaped. And the Bible says, Jesus himself says we don't know. He doesn't know himself when the end time is coming. And so the goal hasn't changed for any of us in all of that and whomever's going to come after us.
Yeah.
The goal is still the same, is to go out and live your life in a way that preaches the good news. And then to ask this question, God, I am, send me, I'm willing. But we've got to do our own work inside ourselves. What is the big purpose of your life that you feel like you're missing, Jacqueline?
Honestly, I want for nothing. And that's the blessing that God has given over my life, protection as a married woman and safety from danger and dangerous situations that God has provided for me throughout my life. So this idea of fitting myself to be of maximum service to God is a question that's important to me to ask so that I don't get too comfortable in this life. And,
Jacqueline, last week I interviewed Max Lucado. I don't know if you got to hear that episode, but we have his book, What Happens Next? And he addresses all of these things that you're talking about. How are we to prepare? But also, this is part of the 12th step, is to carry on the message. And so the maximum service is literally to be available. And so it might look like, leading a group, leading a recovery group. It may be just participating in recovery groups, because your message gets out. It could be that you connect with people one-on-one, but you offer yourself as available to the Lord, as where do you, like, I think it was you that just said that, Mark, here I am, Lord, send me, where do you want me to go? And in due time he will. But I also think we should send her Mac's book. I think we have that.
Yeah. Well, and just to piggyback on that, Jacqueline, there are, I think, some key indicators or clues that we can follow in our lives. I'm oftentimes asking myself the same thing. Where's the best use of my time and energy and gifts that God has given me? And so one of the questions I like to ask is there a problem or issue in the world that bothers me more than another one?
Yeah, it bothers me that plastic goes into the ocean, and we're so flippant about it in our culture.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you laugh, but Jacqueline, it's such a good thing. It's so true.
Yeah, and so in our faith tradition, we have this thing called creation care. And so you may want to explore, like, who are the Christians out there that are taking seriously creation care? Because once we start answering some of these questions of, like, what's bothering me and what are the solutions, what solution to a problem would I like to be today? And then I think the next step is to get curious. Who out there is doing what? And is there a place I can join that? Is there a place I can lend myself to that and engage in that? And you're talking to 3 therapists today because somewhere along the line of emotional and mental and relational pain was a problem that we wanted to be a part of solving in the world with God's guidance and help.
And even as you get involved with that creation care, you're going to come shoulder to shoulder to other people that, guess what? They may be struggling in some form of addiction because, people hide that really well. And you can say, hey, it's okay. You can trust me. I'll show you the way out of that hole.
Well, and I admire that you're looking for opportunity, Jacqueline, to do something and make a difference. But I think if I was your therapist, I would just push back a little bit when you say, I want for nothing, because you want for purpose.
Yes.
And there's a hole.
That's good,
there's
Mark.
something missing there and something needed to be explored.
Because God created us for purpose. Yeah. And if we don't have that, then we are missing something really critically and important. So that thing inside of you, Jacqueline, is something to be honored and explored.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I'm a mother of a young child, and it's something I've had to guard against. Like, my identity is not as a mother. My identity is in Christ, right?
Yeah.
My identity is also not in the fact that I work full time. My identity is in Christ.
Yeah.
But it's in all of those things, Jacqueline.
It is in all
it shows up in all those things. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and Jacqueline, you are definitely asking the right questions. We are going to send you Max Lucado's book. And we want to encourage you on this journey of discovering your purpose. Committed to prayer. Surround yourself with people who can reflect you back to you really well, including the things that you're good at. Thank you so much for calling in. Everyone out there, thank you so much for being a part of the show, for being with us today. If there is a way that we can help you, especially get connected to one of our therapists or counselors, newlife.com is a way to do that, and we will see you next show.
We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you. But you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE. But when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.